Ophelia Picho climbed into the wrong car at 11:45 p.m. on Christmas Eve. Wearing a burgundy sweater with snowflakes, she'd knitted patches onto herself and boots that had been resoled twice because she refused to throw away anything that still worked. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, like the video, and comment where you're watching from. Your support helps us bring more powerful stories. And trust me, you won't want to miss them. Now, let's go back to hours before, where it all started. In exactly 2 minutes, the armored glass above her head would crack like a spiderweb under gunfire. In exactly 45 minutes, she would be standing in a marble foyer surrounded by men in black suits, holding a Christmas gift bag meant for her mother, with no way to call for help and no idea if she'd ever see home again. But she didn't know any of that yet. Right now, she was standing on a frozen Chicago sidewalk, watching her phone battery drop from 3% to nothing. "Perfect," she muttered, pulling her cream wool coat tighter against the wind that cut straight through the bone. "Merry Christmas to me." It wasn't the cold that bothered her. It wasn't even missing the last bus to her mother's apartment in Pilsen. It was the way the whole city seemed to glow with warmth she couldn't touch. Windows full of families, couples walking arm in arm, everyone belonging to someone. Just another Christmas Eve, proving what she already knew. Some people were meant to be remembered, and some people were meant to disappear into the background of other people's stories. The graduate library had been empty when she'd finally locked up at 10:30. Dr. Morrison's Christmas party, the one she'd been obligated to attend for exactly 47 minutes, had been full of wine she couldn't afford to drink on a teaching assistant stipend and colleagues who looked through her like she was furniture. She'd slipped out the moment no one was looking, clutching the gift bag with the scarf she'd saved 3 months to buy. The cold hit like a slap. December in Chicago was magical if you had someone waiting for you at the end of the train ride. Ophelia had her mother, her research on Byzantine economic systems, and a studio apartment that cost too much and heated too little. Her phone screen went black in her hand. A sleek black SUV pulled up to the curb, windows tinted dark as oil, and relief flooded through her chest. She didn't check the license plate. Her fingers were numb, the gift bag was slipping, and she just wanted to get home before her mother went to bed, thinking she'd forgotten. She grabbed the door handle and threw herself inside. Thank God, she breathed, sinking in a leather that smelled like expensive cologne and something darker, gunpowder, maybe, though she wouldn't recognize it yet. 4th and Kedzie, please. Southside. The app might have glitched when my phone died, but the ride went through. Can you turn up the heat? I literally cannot feel my toes. A voice cut through her rambling like a blade dragged across ice. Chikazo say too. Ophelia's eyes snapped open. The man in the driver's seat had turned, and everything inside her went still. Dark eyes, not brown, black, pinned her in place like a butterfly to a board. Sharp jaw shadowed with stubble. Black hair perfectly styled despite the late hour. And crawling up from the collar of his charcoal suit. Ink. Geometric patterns and Italian script wrapping around his throat like a declaration of violence. She tried to find her voice. It came out small. I'm the one who ordered the ride. Ophelia, you're supposed to take me to Pilsen. He stared at her, not confused, calculating. Then his eyes flicked to the rearview mirror and his entire body changed, shoulders squaring, jaw tightening, one hand disappearing beneath the dashboard. The SUV lurched forward so violently her head snapped back against the headrest. Hey, she grabbed the seat, indignation flooding where confusion had been. What are you doing? I will report you. I'll give you 1 star. Another vehicle pulled alongside. Black, sleek, moving too fast for a residential street. The window rolled down. A gun. The sound that escaped her throat was barely human. Is that, oh my God? A hand shot back, tattooed knuckles, signet ring catching streetlight, grabbed her shoulder and shoved her face toward the floor. Jew. 1 word. Not a request. An order from someone who expected obedience. The first bullet hit the armor glass with a sound like a hammer on an anvil. Ophelia screamed, pressing her face into carpet that smelled like leather cleaner and gunpowder. The gift bag crumpled beneath her. More shots, crack, 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 and she could hear him speaking rapid Italian into a phone, completely calm, as if being shot was a weather pattern he'd learned to expect. "Let me out," she screamed, voice breaking. "Stop the car." The single word that came back was flat. Final. "No." The chase lasted forever and no time at all. Sharp turns that threw her against the door. Bullets pinging off metal. The squeal of tires and the distant wail of sirens that never got closer. When it finally stopped, she stayed face down, trembling so hard her teeth rattled. "Sue!" A hand gripped her arm, not rough, but unbreakable, and pulled her upright. Through the cracked back window, wrought iron gates. A stone mansion that looked like it had been stolen from a Gothic novel and dropped into Lincoln Park. Christmas lights wrapped around every column, every tree, glowing white and gold against the snow. Beautiful, terrifying. He was already out, moving to her door with the fluid grace of a predator. When he opened it, his expression was stone. Ophelia pressed back against the seat, gift bag clutched to her chest like a shield. "I'm not going anywhere with you." His hand closed around her elbow. "Yes, you are." He pulled her out, not dragging, but with the kind of strength that made resistance pointless, and started walking toward the house. "Let go." She tried to yank free, boots slipping on ice. "I said let go." His voice was flat, cold, eyes fixed ahead as he walked. "Wrong car." "I know it was a wrong car. That's what I'm trying to tell you." "Those men saw your face." Her blood ran cold. "What? Now you're coming with me." "I'm not." "You walk out those gates." He didn't look at her, didn't slow down. "They grab you in 2 minutes. Then call the police." His jaw tightened, a muscle jumping beneath the ink on his throat. "They think you're my woman. They'll use you. Or kill you. Probably both." The world tilted. "What?" "Tell them I'm not." Her voice cracked. "Tell them I got in the wrong car." "Won't matter." Still walking. Snow crunching under expensive shoes. "They saw." "That's enough. You can't just." "Stop talking." The words cut like a blade. "I have a dead Morty soldier on the south side, a security breach in my detail, and now you." He finally looked at her, and his eyes were emptier than the winter sky. "So you will walk into this house. You will be quiet, and you will let me think." Her throat closed. "I have to call my mother." "Your phone is dead." "Then give me yours." "No." They reached the front steps. The door burst open before he could knock. A small woman rushed out, white hair flying from beneath a red headscarf, wooden spoon still in her hand. "Abel. Che Caso." She saw Ophelia and stopped, blinked. Then her eyes went wide as moons. "Madonna Santa. Nico. Who is she?" Abel, if that was his name, didn't let go of Ophelia's arm. A complication. The woman looked between them, then at the bullet holes in the SUV, then back at Ophelia's face. Something shifted in her expression, softened. "Tesoro." She switched to accented English. "You look frozen. Come, I make you something warm." "I don't want anything warm," Ophelia said, hating how her voice shook. "I want to go home." Abel finally released her arm, stepped back, looked at her with those black, unreadable eyes. "You can't." 2 words, but they landed like a life sentence. "Magdalena will show you to a room. You'll stay there tonight." "I'm not." "Tomorrow we'll discuss what happens next." He was already turning away, already dismissing her. "But tonight, you're not leaving, Bambina." The door closed behind him with a heavy, final thud. Ophelia stood in the snow, gift bag crumpled in her shaking hands, Christmas lights glowing all around her like a beautiful cage. The old woman, Magdalena, touched her shoulder gently. "Vieni, cara. Come inside. It's too cold." And because Ophelia didn't know what else to do, because her phone was dead and her legs were shaking and men with guns had to try to kill her, she followed. Into the house. Into his world. Into a story that had just stopped being hers to write. The interior of the mansion hit her like a physical force. Marble floors stretched endlessly in every direction, polished to a mirror shine that reflected the glow of crystal chandeliers hanging from vaulted ceilings. The walls were paneled in dark wood that probably cost more than her entire education, and everything, from the ornate crown molding to the antique side tables holding fresh white roses, screamed old money and older violence. Men in black suits materialized from doorways she hadn't noticed. For 5, maybe 6 of them, all watching her with the same blank, assessing expression. Their jackets were tailored perfectly, but she could see the bulge of weapons beneath the fabric. One of them, a man with a scar bisecting his left eyebrow, said something in rapid Italian to Abel. Abel responded without looking at her, his voice low and commanding. The scar man nodded once and disappeared through a side door. Magdalena was already tugging at Ophelia's coat, clucking her tongue. "Povera bambina, you're shaking like a leaf. Come, come. The kitchen is warm." "I don't want," Ophelia started, but her voice died when Abel turned those black eyes on her again. "Go with Magdalena." It wasn't a suggestion. "Don't leave the kitchen. Don't touch anything. Don't try to leave." Or what? The words escaped before she could stop them, fueled by terror and adrenaline and the surreal absurdity of being ordered around like a child. "You'll shoot me too?" Something flickered behind his eyes. Not anger. Something colder. "No, Bambina. I'll lock you in a room with no windows and no way out. Your choice." He walked away before she could respond, his expensive shoes clicking against marble, 2 of the suited men falling in his step behind him. They disappeared through a doorway at the far end of the foyer, and she heard the distinct sound of a heavy door closing. Locking. "Vieni." Magdalena's hand was gentle but insistent on her arm. "He has business. You have hot chocolate. Come." Ophelia let herself be led, because the alternative was standing alone in that cavernous foyer with strange men staring at her, like she was a problem to be solved. The kitchen was shockingly normal, all warm light and the smell of something savory simmering on an industrial-sized stove. Copper pots hung from hooks above a marble island. A Christmas wreath made of dried oranges and cinnamon sticks hung on the far wall. It could have been anyone's kitchen, except for the man standing by the door with a gun visible in his shoulder holster. Magdalena pushed her into a chair at a small table in the corner, then busied herself at the stove. "You eat." "I'm not hungry." Ophelia's hands were still shaking. She set the crumpled gift bag on the table and stared at it. The tissue paper her mother would have loved was torn. The bow was crushed. "I need to call my mother. She's expecting me. She'll be worried. Tomorrow." Magdalena set a mug of hot chocolate in front of her, the kind with real melted chocolate, not powder. "Tonight, you rest." "I can't just rest. I was kidnapped. I was shot at. There are men with guns." She gestured wildly at the guard by the door. "I don't even know who you people are." Magdalena sat down across from her, her round face suddenly serious. "You got in Abel's car. The Morettas saw. Now you are in danger." She reached across the table and patted Ophelia's hand. "He will keep you safe, but you must stay here. You understand?" "No, I don't understand." Ophelia pulled her hand back. "I don't understand any of this. I was going home. I was going to give my mother her Christmas present and watch old movies and pretend that I'm not completely alone in this world except for her. And now I'm here and people try to kill me, and that man, Abel, he just..." Her voice cracked. She pressed her palms against her eyes, refusing to cry. "Not here. Not in front of strangers." Magdalena sighed. When Ophelia finally looked up, the old woman's expression had softened into something almost maternal. "Drink. Then I show you to a room. You have a bathroom, clean clothes, a bed. Tomorrow, things will be clearer. I don't want things to be clear tomorrow. I want to leave now." "Tesoro." Magdalena's voice dropped. "Those men tonight, they will find you if you leave. They will hurt you to hurt him. This is the truth. Abel knows this. It's why you stay." Ophelia wrapped her hands around the mug, desperate for something to hold on to. The heat burned her palms, but it was better than the numbness. "Who is he?" "Really?" Magdalena stood, collecting ingredients from the counter. "He's a man who keeps his family safe. Nothing more, nothing less." That wasn't an answer. It was a deflection wrapped in sentiment, and Ophelia had spent too many years in academia parsing subtext to miss it. But pressing the issue felt dangerous, so she drank the hot chocolate in silence and tried not to think about her mother waiting by the phone. 15 minutes later, Magdalena led her up a sweeping staircase to the second floor. The guard from the kitchen followed at a discreet distance. The hallway was lined with closed doors, each one probably hiding a bedroom bigger than her entire apartment. Magdalena stopped at a door near the end of the hall and pushed it open. The room was beautiful. A four-poster bed with cream linens. A window seat overlooking the snow-covered grounds. A private bathroom visible through an open door. It looked like something from a magazine spread. It also looked like a very expensive prison cell. Everything you need is here. Magdalena gestured to a dresser. Clothes that will fit. Bathroom is everything. If you need something, you press this. She indicated a small intercom panel by the door. Someone will come. To help me? Or to make sure I don't leave? Magdalena's expression was sad. Both, Kara. Both. She paused at the door. He is not a bad man, Abel. Hard, yes. Dangerous, yes. But not bad. You will see. Then she was gone, the door closing with a soft click. Ophelia waited, counting to 60, then tried the handle. Locked from the outside. She laughed, but it came out more like a sob. Of course it was locked. She was a complication, a liability, a problem that needed to be contained. The Christmas gift bag sat on the dresser where she dropped it, a reminder of the life she'd been living just 2 hours ago. A life that felt impossibly far away now. She sank onto the bed, still wearing her coat and boots, and stared at the ceiling. Somewhere in this massive house, Abel Costa, whoever he really was handling his business. Making calls, giving orders, planning whatever came next for the girl who'd gotten into the wrong car. And she was here, stripped of her phone, her freedom, her choices. Dead to the world for her own safety, according to a man who'd looked at her like she was an equation he needed to solve. Outside the window, snow began to fall harder, covering the grounds in white. The Christmas lights blurred into halos of gold. It was almost midnight, almost Christmas. Her mother would be checking her phone, wondering, worrying, and Ophelia had no way to tell her that she was alive. No way to explain that she'd stumbled into something dark and dangerous and completely beyond her understanding. No way to promise that she'd be home soon, because she had no idea if that promise would be a lie. She pulled her knees to her chest and wrapped her arms around them, making herself small in the center of the too large bed. The house was silent except for the distant murmur of voices somewhere below. Men talking, planning, living lives built on violence and secrets. And she was trapped in the middle of it all, a civilian in a world that had no use for civilians, held captive by a man with ink-stained skin and eyes like winter. The lion's den, that's what this was. And she'd walked right into it, one wrong car door at a time. Ophelia didn't sleep. She sat on the edge of the bed until the sky outside turned from black to the pale gray of early morning, watching snow accumulate on the window ledge and listening to the house settle around her. Footsteps in the hallway, distant voices, the opening and closing of doors. A world functioning while she remained frozen in place. At 6:47 a.m., the lock clicked. She was on her feet before the door fully opened, boots still laced, coat still wrapped around her like armor. A different man stood in the doorway, younger than the scarred one from last night, with careful eyes and a suit that probably cost more than her rent. Mr. Costa wants to see you. His English was perfect, accent American. Now, and if I refuse? His expression didn't change. Then I carry you downstairs. Your choice, miss. She walked. He led her back down the sweeping staircase, through the marble foyer that looked even more imposing in daylight, and down a corridor lined with paintings she suspected were originals. They stopped at a heavy wooden door. The young man knocked twice, waited for a response she couldn't hear, then opened it and stepped aside. Go in. Ophelia's fingers curled into fists. She forced them to relax, forced her spine straight, and walked through the door. The office was all dark wood and leather, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a massive desk positioned to face the door. Behind it, framed by the winter light streaming through tall windows, sat Abel Costa. He'd changed clothes. Black turtleneck, cashmere probably, that hugged his shoulders and arms. No jacket, no pretense, and without the suit concealing them, his tattoos were impossible to ignore. They covered both forearms in intricate black and gray work, crawling from wrist to elbow and disappearing beneath the fabric. On his right arm, Roman columns, a gladiator's helmet, Latin phrases she couldn't quite read. On his left, Roses with thorns so detailed she could see individual petals, a dagger, dates and Roman numerals, and still that geometric pattern on his neck, visible above the collar like a brand. He was reading something on his phone, didn't look up when she entered. Sit, I'd rather stand. His eyes lifted, met hers. Something flickered there, recognition maybe or amusement. Sit, Bambina, we're going to talk, and I'm not doing it with you hovering like a student at office hours. The specificity of that image caught her off guard. She sat, slowly, on the edge of the leather chair across from his desk, keeping her coat on, keeping her distance. He set the phone down, leaned back, studied her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. You didn't sleep. It wasn't a question. She answered anyway. Would you? If you'd been kidnapped. You weren't kidnapped. You were protected. By being locked in a room? That's protection. Yes. Simple. Factual. No room for debate. The Morettas have eyes everywhere. They saw you in my car. They think you matter to me. That makes you a target. So tell them the truth. That I'm nobody. That I got in the wrong car by mistake. His jaw tightened just barely. It doesn't work that way. Then make it work that way. She leaned forward, trying to keep her voice steady despite the tremor threatening to break through. I have a life. A mother who's probably calling the police right now. Research deadlines. Responsibilities. You can't just erase all of that because of a mistake. I can. I did. He touched the signet ring on his right hand, spinning it once. A tell, she realized. Stress or thought. Something beneath that stone exterior. Your phone is gone. Your social media is gone. As far as the world knows, Ophelia Picho left a Christmas party last night and vanished. Her blood went cold. You deleted my accounts? I had them deleted. There's a difference. He stood, moving around the desk with that predatory grace she'd noticed last night. Leaned against the front edge, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. The Morettas are thorough. They would have found your mother's address within an hour. Your apartment within 2. Every place you've ever felt safe would become a trap. So your solution is to make me disappear? Her voice cracked. She hated it. Hated the weakness. To just erase me? My solution is to keep you alive long enough to end this. His voice dropped, quiet but absolute. When the Morettas are handled, you go back. New phone. New social media. A story about a spontaneous trip. Your life continues. When? How long is when? As long as it takes. She stood, anger finally overtaking fear. That's not an answer. That's a prison sentence with no end date. He didn't move. Didn't back away even though she was close enough now to see the faint scar above his left eyebrow. The shadow of stubble along his jaw. The way the neck tattoo disappeared beneath the turtleneck collar. Close enough to smell expensive cologne and something else, coffee maybe, and underneath it all, that scent of controlled violence. You're angry. He said it like he was noting the weather. Good. Angry means you're thinking. Thinking means you'll stay sharp. Don't patronize me. I'm not. His eyes, still black in the morning light, held hers without blinking. I'm telling you the reality. You can rage against it, or you can accept it and work with me. Either way, you're staying. She wanted to scream, wanted to cry, wanted to break something just to prove she still had control over anything in this nightmare. Instead, she lifted her chin and met his stare without flinching. I have one condition. That almost amusement flickered again. You're not in a position to negotiate conditions. Let me call my mother. One call. I'll tell her I'm safe, that I'm staying with a friend, that I'll be home after Christmas. Give me that, and I'll stop fighting you. He studied her, long enough that she wondered if he'd refuse, long enough that she prepared herself to hear no and figure out what came next. One call. He straightened, pulled his phone from his pocket, did something she couldn't see. Monitored. Any hint that you're in trouble, any code words, any deviation from the script, and it ends. You understand. Understand. He handed her the phone. The screen showed her mother's number already dialed. His finger hovered over the call button. Say what I told you. Nothing more. He pressed call, held the phone to her ear himself, standing close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from him. 3 rings. 4. Then her mother's voice, thick with worry and sleep deprivation. Hello. Mama. Ophelia's throat closed. She forced words through it. It's me. Ophelia. Oh, thank God, baby, where are you? I've been calling and calling. The police said it's too early to file a report, but I knew something was wrong. I'm fine. I'm safe. I'm staying with a friend from the university. Dr. Morrison's house, up in Lincoln Park. The lie tasted bitter. My phone died and I forgot my charger. I'm so sorry I worried you. Lincoln Park? Baby, you said you were coming home. I know. I'm sorry. Something came up with research and I need to stay a few more days. I'll be home right after Christmas. I promise. A pause. She could hear her mother's breathing, the hesitation. You're sure you're okay? I'm sure, Mama. I love you. I'll call you tomorrow. I love you too, baby. Be safe. Abel ended the call, pulled the phone away. His expression hadn't changed, but something in his eyes had softened, just fractionally. Thank you, she whispered. He pocketed the phone. You did well. No code. No panic. Smart. I'm not stupid. No. He tilted his head, studying her again. You're not. Most people would have broken by now. Cried. Begged. Tried to run. He reached out, and she froze, but he only adjusted the collar of her coat where it had twisted. The gesture was strangely gentle. But not you, Bambina. You negotiate. You think. You survive. His hand lingered for half a second too long. She saw the tattoos on his knuckles now, small Roman numerals across his fingers, numbers that probably meant something violent, something final. She stepped back. Don't call me that. What? Bambina. I'm not your anything. For the first time since she'd met him, Abel Costa almost smiled. It didn't reach his eyes, but his mouth curved just slightly. You're my house, under my protection, dependent on my decisions. He moved past her, heading for the door. You're exactly my Bambina, at least until this is over. He paused at the threshold, looked back over his shoulder. The neck tattoo caught the light, geometric and beautiful and somehow threatening. Magdalena will bring you breakfast. After, we discuss what comes next. His voice dropped. And Ophelia? Stop trying to hate me long enough to stay alive. We both have work to do. The door closed behind him. She stood alone in his office, surrounded by books and leather and the lingering scent of expensive cologne, and realized two things simultaneously. One, Abel Costa was more than just a man with guns and tattoos. He was educated, strategic, careful, dangerous in ways that had nothing to do with physical violence. Two, she just stopped shaking. Somewhere between the negotiation and the phone call and that almost smile, her fear had transformed into something else. Not trust, not yet, but maybe the first fragile thread of understanding that if she was going to survive this, she needed to stop seeing him as a monster and start seeing him as a man. A complicated, violent, tattooed man who'd just given her mother peace of mind when he didn't have to. Ink and ivory, dark and light, violence and mercy. She sank into the chair she'd vacated and stared at the books lining his shelves. Philosophy, history, art theory, Italian poetry. Who was Abel Costa, really? And more terrifying still, why did she suddenly want to know? Magdalena brought breakfast on a silver tray at 8:30. Fresh pastries that flaked at the touch. Espresso, so strong Ophelia could smell it from across the room, and fruit arranged like art. The old woman sat on the small table by the window, chattering in Italian about the snow and Christmas, and something about Abel being impossible this morning. Ophelia ate because her body demanded it, not because she tasted anything. Her mind was still circling Abel's office, those books, that almost smile, the way his hand had felt adjusting her collar. Gentle, careful, wrong. She was finishing the last pastry when the door opened without knocking. Abel stood in the doorway, and in his hand, crumpled and stained, was her Christmas gift bag. Her heart stopped. This was in the car. He stepped inside, closed the door behind him, held up the bag like evidence. You brought a present. To a gunfight. I didn't know there was going to be a gunfight. The words came out sharper than she'd intended. I thought I was going home. He moved to the window, set the bag on the table beside her empty plate. The tissue paper was torn where bullets had grazed it. One corner was dark with something that might have been oil or blood. He stared at it like it was a puzzle he couldn't solve. What's inside? None of your business. His jaw tightened. That tell again, the muscle jumping beneath the geometric ink. Everything about you is my business now. It's a scarf. She pulled the bag toward her, protective. For my mother. I saved 3 months to buy it because she's always cold and the heating in her building barely works, and I wanted... Her voice cracked. She swallowed hard. I wanted her to have something nice. Something that said I was thinking about her even when I'm buried in research and can barely afford to eat. Silence. Heavy and uncomfortable. Abel didn't move. Didn't look away. Just stood there with winter light behind him, casting his face half in shadow, and stared at the ruined gift bag like it had personally offended him. 3 months. He said it quietly. Not a question. A statement he was testing against something internal. Yes. On a teaching assistant salary. Yes. He pulled out the chair across from her. Saturday. The movement was slower than before, deliberate, like he was approaching something dangerous. His hands rested on the table, fingers spread, and she could see all the tattoos now. The Roman numerals, the small words in Italian script between his knuckles, dates and names and promises written in ink. Show me. What? The scarf. Show me. Ophelia hesitated. It felt wrong, exposing this piece of herself to him. But arguing seemed pointless, and part of her, the part that was still trying to understand who this man actually was, wanted to see how he'd react. She pulled the bag, opened carefully, extracted the scarf. It was cashmere, deep burgundy, soft as prayer. She'd found it at an estate sale, verified it was real, spent weeks making sure she could actually afford it. The silk label was still attached. The fabric caught the light, warm and rich. Abel reached out. Stopped. May I? The courtesy shocked her more than anything that had happened in the last 12 hours. She nodded. He lifted the scarf from her hands, testing the weight, rubbing the fabric between tattooed fingers. His expression didn't change, but something in his eyes did. Something that looked almost like pain. My mother wore cashmere. His voice had gone quiet. Distant. Always burgundy. Said it reminded her of wine from her grandfather's vineyard in Sicily. He set the scarf down gently, like it might break. She died when I was 16. Cancer. 3 months from diagnosis to funeral. Ophelia's breath caught. I'm sorry. Don't be. It was a long time ago. But the way he said it, the way his fingers lingered on the scarf's edge, suggested it wasn't long ago at all. My father gave her a scarf the last Christmas she was alive. She wore it every day until she couldn't get out of bed anymore. He looked up, met her eyes, and for the first time since she'd gotten into his car, she saw something other than calculation and control. She saw grief, old and buried, but still sharp enough to cut. You saved for 3 months. He said it like he was trying to make sense of something impossible. To give your mother warmth. She deserves it. Yes. He stood abruptly, moved to the window, hands shoved in his pockets. His back was to her, shoulders rigid. Most mothers do. The silence stretched. Snow fell harder outside, blurring the grounds into abstract shapes. Somewhere in the house, a door closed. Voices murmured. Life continued while they stood suspended in this strange, unexpected moment. I'll make sure she gets it. Abel's voice was still quiet, still distant. When this is over, I'll have it delivered personally, with a note that says you're safe. What? He turned. The vulnerability she'd glimpsed was gone, replaced by that stone mask. But not entirely. Something remained beneath it, softer, human. Because you saved for 3 months. Because she's your mother. Because... He stopped, touched his signet ring. Because my mother never got another Christmas. And yours shouldn't suffer for my war. Ophelia felt tears pressing against her eyes. She blinked them back, refusing to let them fall. Not here, not in front of him, but her throat was too tight to speak. Abel crossed back to the table, picked up the scarf with careful hands, folded it precisely the way someone who understood quality would, placed it back in the ruined gift bag with a gentleness that contradicted everything else about him. You don't cry. He observed it like a fact. Most people would have by now. Crying doesn't solve problems. Her voice was rough. My mother taught me that. When my father left, when money was tight, when the world told us we didn't matter, she never cried. She worked. She survived. She made sure I had what I needed to succeed. Smart woman. The smartest. He nodded slowly, then did something she didn't expect. He reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone, and took a photo of the scarf. Typed something quickly, showed her the screen. It was a message to someone named Salvatore, matched this exactly. Cashmere, burgundy, best quality available. Deliver to address, I'll provide with a card that says, from Ophelia. She's safe. Merry Christmas. He hit send before she could process it. You're replacing it. Her voice was barely a whisper. I'm ensuring your mother gets what you intended to give her. Undamaged. He pocketed the phone. Consider it an apology for the inconvenience of keeping her daughter alive. That's not. She couldn't finish. Couldn't articulate what she was feeling. Gratitude mixed with confusion, mixed with something dangerously close to trust. Abel moved toward the door, then paused. Look back. My mother used to say that you could tell everything about a person by what they gave to the people they loved. Not the cost, the thought, the sacrifice. His eyes held hers. 3 months of sacrifice, Bambina. For warmth. That tells me everything I need to know about you. Which is what? That you're not like the people in my world. He said it like a fact, like a problem, like something that mattered more than he wanted it to. And that makes you dangerous in ways I didn't anticipate. He left before she could ask what he meant. Ophelia sat alone with her empty plate and her ruined gift bag, staring at the space where he'd stood. Her hands were shaking again, but not from fear. From something else. Something that felt like the ground shifting beneath her feet. She'd seen Abel Costa, the captor, the Mafia boss, the man with guns and control and absolute authority. Watch me. But just now, for a handful of minutes, she'd seen something else. A boy who'd lost his mother. A son who remembered cashmere and wine-colored scarves and the last Christmas before everything changed. A man who understood sacrifice because he'd lived with loss. The gift bag sat on the table between them, a bridge she hadn't intended to build. And on the other side of it, Abel Costa had revealed the smallest, most dangerous truth. He was human, capable of grief, capable of understanding, capable of gentleness when he chose to offer it, which meant everything she thought she knew about surviving this had just become infinitely more complicated. Because it was easier to hate a monster than to understand man, and she was terrifyingly close to understanding him. The dress arrived at 2 p.m. on December 26th, delivered by a woman who introduced herself simply as Elena, and spoke with the brisk efficiency of someone who dressed dangerous men's women for a living. Arms up, Elena commanded, and Ophelia obeyed because arguing with a woman holding pins seemed unwise. The silk slid over her skin like water. Burgundy, deep and rich, the exact shade of the scarf she'd bought her mother. The bodice hugged her curves. The neckline dipped just low enough to be elegant rather than provocative, and the skirt fell in liquid folds that caught the light with every movement. Elena circled her, adjusting, pinning, muttering in Italian. Then she stepped back, nodded once, and said, "He has good taste. You'll do. Do for what? Tonight." Elena packed her supplies with practice speed. The winter gala. Everyone who matters will be there, including people who want Mr. Costa dead. She paused at the door. Smile. Look in love. Don't leave his side. You'll be fine. She left before Ophelia could argue that she wouldn't be fine, that she had no idea how to pretend to be in love with her captor, that this was insane. Abel arrived at 6 p.m. sharp, wearing a tuxedo that probably cost more than her entire education. Black on black, perfectly tailored, the kind of formal where that whispered old money and older violence. His hair was styled back, emphasizing the sharp angles of his face, and his neck tattoos were just visible above his collar, a deliberate reminder of what he was beneath the elegant veneer. He stopped in the doorway, stared. Turn around. Ophelia's jaw tightened. I'm not a doll. Turn around, Bambina. Let me see if Elena earned her fee. She turned, slowly, felt his eyes tracking every line, every curve. When she faced him again, something in his expression had shifted. Not the stone mask. Something underneath it. Appreciation, maybe, or possession. Good. He stepped inside, holding a velvet box. You'll need these. Diamonds. A necklace that probably cost more than her mother's apartment. Matching earrings that caught light like captured stars. I can't wear those. You will. Tonight, you're Ophelia Picho, my fiancée, a woman I'd kill for and die for. He moved behind her, lifted the necklace. His fingers brushed her neck as he fastened the clasp, warm against her skin. Which means you wear diamonds. You wear silk. You look like you belong at my side. I don't belong at your side. I belong at home with my research and my mother and my normal, boring life. Tonight, you belong to me. His breath was warm against her ear, and everyone watching needs to believe it. She turned to face him, close enough to see the flecks of amber in his dark eyes. Why? Why am I really doing this? Because the Morettis will be there. Because they're expecting me to hide you, to keep you secret. He touched her jaw, tilting her face up. The gesture was possessive, but strangely gentle. So I'm doing the opposite. I'm parading you in front of them, claiming you publicly, making you untouchable, or making me the biggest target in the room. That too. His thumb brushed her cheek, which is why you don't leave my side. Not for a drink, not for the restroom, not for anything. You understand. She wanted to argue, wanted to refuse, but the look in his eyes, the absolute certainty there, told her this wasn't negotiable. I understand. Good girl. He dropped his hand, stepped back, offered his arm like they were going to dinner instead of a battlefield disguised as a party. Let's go introduce you to Chicago's elite. The ballroom was everything Ophelia had imagined high society would be and more. Crystal chandeliers casting prismatic light across marble floors. Women in gowns that cost small fortunes. Men in tuxedos that fit like second skins. Champagne flowing. Chamber music playing. The scent of expensive perfume and older money hanging in the air like incense. Abel's hand rested on the small of her back, warm and claiming, as they descended the grand staircase. Heads turned. Conversations paused. She felt the weight of 100 eyes assessing, judging, calculating. Smile. Abel murmured against her ear. You're in love with me, remember? She smiled, hoped it looked genuine. They moved through the crowd like sharks through shallow water. Abel greeted men who looked like they traded in boardrooms and back alleys with equal ease. Introduced her with casual possession. My fiancée, Ophelia. Each time, his hand tightened on her back. Each time, she felt the lie settle deeper into her skin. And each time, she noticed the watchers. Men who didn't approach, who lingered at the edges of conversations, observing. A man in a gray suit with cold eyes. Another by the bar with a scar bisecting his lip. A third near the terrace doors, phone in hand, typing. They're here, she whispered during a lull in conversation. Abel's expression didn't change, but his hand slid from her back to her hip, pulling her closer. I know. How many? At least 6 that I've counted. Could be more. He guided her toward the center of the ballroom, where couples were dancing. Dance with me. I don't know how to dance like this. Then learn quickly. He pulled her into his arms, one hand at her waist, the other capturing her fingers. Follow my lead. Don't look at them. Look at me. She looked, had no choice when he was this close, when she could smell his cologne and feel the controlled strength in how he held her. His eyes held hers, black and intense, and for a moment the entire ballroom faded into background noise. You're doing well, he said quietly as they moved. Better than I expected. You mean I'm a convincing liar? I mean you're surviving. His thumb traced circles against her waist through the silk. That takes more strength than you know. Tell me something. She kept her voice low. If this goes wrong, if they try something, what happens to me? His jaw tightened. The muscle jumped beneath the ink. Nothing happens to you. I won't allow it. You can't control everything. The music swelled. He spun her, and in that moment she saw them clearly. The watchers, closing in, not approaching directly, but tightening the circle. The man with the scar had moved closer to the exit. The one by the bar was no longer alone. Gray suit was speaking into his phone, eyes locked on her. Abel. Her fingers tightened on his shoulder. I see them. His voice was calm. Too calm. The kind of calm that preceded violence. Stay with me. No matter what happens, you stay with me. A waiter appeared at Abel's elbow. Said something in rapid Italian. Abel's expression went cold. What? Ophelia whispered. What did he say? The Morettis want to meet you. He pulled her closer, his hand sliding to the back of her neck. Protective. Possessive. They've requested an introduction. Politely. That's good, right? If they're being polite. Bambina. He looked at her, and for the first time since the car chase, she saw something close to fear in his eyes. Not for himself. For her. In my world, politeness is just violence wearing a smile. Remember that. He led her across the ballroom, through the crowd that parted like they sensed what was coming, toward a group of men standing near the terrace doors. Older men, distinguished, wearing expensive suits and expressions that promised nothing good. The man in the center smiled as they approached. It didn't reach his eyes. Abel Costa, what a pleasure. His gaze slid to Ophelia. And you must be the young woman everyone's talking about. The one who appeared so suddenly in our friend's life. My fiancée, Abel said, his voice flat. Ophelia Picho. Picho. The man tasted the name. Italian heritage? African-American. Ophelia said before she could stop herself. The name's coincidence, not ancestry. The man's smile widened. Beautiful and sharp. I can see why you're keeping her close, Abel. He extended his hand. Vittorio Moretti. Charmed. Ophelia's blood went cold. This was him. The rival. The threat. The man whose soldiers had tried to kill her 3 nights ago. And he was smiling like they were old friends meeting at a cocktail party. Abel's hand tightened on her hip, a warning. She took Vittorio's hand. His grip was cold, his eyes colder. The pleasure is mine, she managed. I'm sure it is. Vittorio released her hand. Tell me, my dear, how did you and Abel meet? It's rare for him to bring anyone into his world. Rarer still for that person to survive the introduction. The implication hung in the air like smoke. Ophelia felt every eye in the circle watching her. Felt Abel's tension radiating through his hand on her hip. Felt the weight of the lie she was about to tell. And underneath it all, she felt something else. The terrifying understanding that this moment, this performance, would determine whether she lived or died. She smiled, channeled every ounce of confidence she'd ever faked in academic presentations and job interviews and moments when the world expected her to be smaller than she was. He literally swept me off my feet, she said, letting warmth color her voice. Though the bullet holes in his car were a bit much for a first date. Silence. Then Vittorio laughed. Genuine. Surprised. Oh, Abel, you found yourself a rare one. He raised his champagne glass. To new love. May it survive longer than most things in our world. The toast felt like a threat. And as Ophelia raised her own glass, meeting Vittorio Moretti's cold eyes over the rim, she realized with absolute certainty that she was being hunted. And the hunter was smiling. The champagne tasted like fear. Ophelia forced herself to sip it while Vittorio Moretti made polite conversation about Chicago weather and holiday traditions, his words pleasant and his eyes promising death. Abel stood beside her, rigid as stone, his hand never leaving her hip. If you'll excuse us, Abel finally said, his voice carefully controlled. I promised Ophelia the terrace view. Of course. Vittorio's smile was all teeth. Don't stray too far. The night is young, and I'd hate for anything unfortunate to happen. They moved away, but Ophelia could feel eyes tracking them across the ballroom. Multiple sets. Coordinated. We're leaving, Abel murmured against her ear. Now, what about flushing them out? Plans change. They're too organized. Too ready. His hand slid from her hip to her hand, fingers interlacing. To anyone watching, it looked romantic. She felt the tension vibrating through his grip. Walk naturally. Smile. We're just a couple leaving early. They made it halfway to the exit. The lights went out. Not all of them. Just enough to create pockets of darkness, strategic blind spots. The chamber music stuttered to a stop. Confused murmurs rippled through the crowd, then nervous laughter. Someone called for the staff. Abel's hand tightened on hers. Stay close. Then he was pulled away. Not dragged. Not grabbed. Just smoothly separated by a surge of people moving toward the emergency lights, bodies pressing between them. One moment his hand was in hers. The next she was alone in a sea of evening gowns and tuxedos. Abel. She turned, searching, caught a glimpse of his back near the bar, surrounded by men in suits. Not his men. Others. A hand closed around her elbow. Gentle. Polite. Miss Picho. The voice was smooth, accented. Mr. Moretti would like a word. In private. She spun. Gray suit. The watcher from earlier. Up close, his eyes were flat, professional. This wasn't personal for him. Just business. I'm fine here, thanks. She tried to pull free. His grip tightened. I'm afraid I must insist. He pulled. Not hard enough to cause a scene, but firm enough that she stumbled. Another man appeared on her other side, blocking her from view of the ballroom. They were moving her toward a service door, away from the crowd, away from Abel, away from safety. Her mind raced. Screaming would get lost in the confusion. Fighting would end badly. But there had to be something, some way to... The necklace. Abel had fastened it himself, had positioned it carefully, had told her she needed to look like she belonged at his side. And now she understood why he'd chosen diamonds. She stumbled deliberately, crying out, grabbed at the necklace like she was trying to catch herself. The clasp broke exactly as designed, diamonds scattering across the marble floor in a bright, unmistakable trail. Oh God, I'm sorry, she gasped, bending down. I'm so clumsy, Leave it. Gray suit yanked her up. Mr. Moretti is waiting. But the damage was done. A woman nearby had seen the diamonds, was pointing, calling for help, creating exactly the kind of attention abductors hated. They moved faster, pulling her through the service door into a stark concrete hallway. Kitchen sounds echoed from one direction. An exit sign glowed from the other. They dragged her toward the exit. Ophelia's heart hammered. The hallway was empty. No witnesses. No one to see them shove her into a waiting car. No one to tell Abel which direction they'd gone. The exit door burst open ahead of them. Not from the outside. From someone hitting it so hard it slammed into the wall. Abel stood in the opening, and he looked like violence given form. His tuxedo jacket was gone. His shirt was torn at the shoulder. Blood streaked his knuckles, and his eyes, those black, calculating eyes, had gone absolutely feral. Let her go. 2 words. Quiet. Lethal. Gray suit pulled a gun. Stay back, Costa. This doesn't concern. Abel moved. Ophelia had seen him move before, in the car, efficient and controlled. This was different. This was a predator unleashed. He closed the distance before Gray suit could finish his sentence, twisted the gun away with one hand, and drove his elbow into the man's face with the other. The second man released Ophelia, reaching for his own weapon. She didn't think, just reacted, brought her heel down hard on his instep, exactly like her mother had taught her when she was 16. He howled, stumbling. Abel was there, caught the man's wrist, twisted. Something cracked. The man went down screaming. Then Abel's hands were on her face, tilting her head, searching for damage. Are you hurt? I'm fine. I dropped the necklace, so you'd know. I know. Smart girl. His thumb brushed her cheek. But are you hurt? No. Pain exploded through her left arm. She gasped, stumbled. Looked down. Blood, soaking through the burgundy silk. She didn't understand. Hadn't felt anything until now. But there was so much blood, dark and spreading, and her arm suddenly felt like fire. Ophelia. Abel's voice changed, went sharp with something that sounded like fear. Look at me. Look at me, not the blood. She tried. The hallway tilted. She's been cut. Another voice. One of Abel's men, appearing from somewhere. Glass or a blade, boss. Deep. Abel swore in Italian. Stripped off his shirt, pressed it against her arm. The pressure made her cry out. I know, Bambina. I know it hurts, but I need to stop the bleeding. His other hand cupped her face, forcing her to focus on him. Stay with me. You hear me? Stay with me. The diamonds, she whispered. Did they break? Fuck the diamonds. His jaw was tight, that muscle jumping beneath the ink. You broke them on purpose. Let me write to you. You brilliant, reckless. Language, she managed. Try to smile. Everything was getting fuzzy around the edges. Marco. Abel's voice cracked like a whip. Car. Now. We're going to the estate. Call Dr. Russo. Tell him I need him there in 15 minutes or I'll burn his practice to the ground. Hands lifted her. Abel's. Careful despite the urgency. He cradled her against his bare chest, his ruined shirt wrapped around her arm. She could feel his heart hammering against her cheek, could smell blood and cologne and fear. "Stay awake," he ordered, moving fast through the hallway. "Talk to me. Tell me about your research. Byzantine economics. Talk. Trade routes," she mumbled. "Constantinople controlled the Silk Road. Good. What else? Gold standard. Solidus. Most stable currency." Her eyes want to close. "Abel, I'm here. Your tattoos. The numbers. Aren't they dates?" His voice was rough. "People I've lost. People I couldn't save. Am I going to be a date?" "No." Fierce. Absolute. "You're going to be fine. You hear me? You're going to be fine because I won't allow anything else." Cold air hit her face. They were outside. Snow falling. A car door opening. Being lifted inside. Abel sliding in beside her, still holding pressure on her arm, still refusing to let go. The car moved. Fast. Too fast. She could hear Abel barking orders in Italian, his voice cutting through the haze that wanted to pull her under. "Ophelia." His hand touched her face again. "Open your eyes." She hadn't realized they'd closed. "That's it. Stay with me. We're almost there." He adjusted the shirt on her arm, and she whimpered. "I know. I'm sorry. But I can't let you bleed out in my car after everything you've survived." "Bullet holes," she whispered. "In your other car." "What?" I made a joke. "About bullet holes. First date." His laugh was sharp, almost broken. "You made Vittorio Moretti laugh. You dropped diamonds to leave me a trail. You broke the necklace I spent 3 hours having made with a GPS tracker and a breakaway clasp." He pressed his forehead against hers. "You're the smartest, most reckless woman I've ever met, and you're not allowed to die. You understand? Not allowed." "Bossy," she managed. "Yes, I'm bossy. I'm a criminal. I'm dangerous. And right now, you're mine, and I protect what's mine." His voice dropped. "So you're going to stay awake. You're going to let Dr. Russo stitch you up. And then you're going to let me deal with the Morettis in ways that will give you nightmares." "Already have nightmares," she whispered, "about getting in the wrong car." "Bambina." His thumb brushed her cheek. "You got in exactly the right car. You just didn't know it yet." The world faded to the feeling of his hands holding her together, his voice commanding her to stay, and the strange, impossible truth that somewhere between the diamonds and the blood and the fear, she'd stopped wanting to leave. She'd started wanting to survive. For him. With him. The realization should have terrified her. Instead, as darkness pulled at the edges of her vision, it felt almost like coming home. Ophelia woke to white ceiling, white walls, and the sharp smell of antiseptic cutting through the lingering scent of expensive cologne. Her arm throbbed. She turned her head, slowly, and found Abel sitting in a chair pulled close to the bed. Still shirtless, though someone had cleaned the blood from his hands and chest. The tattoos covering his torso were fully visible now. Angel wings spanning his chest, religious iconography at the center, Italian script along his ribs. A map of grief and faith and violence written in ink. He was asleep, head tilted back, jaw relaxed, one hand resting on the bed near hers. Close enough to touch, but not touching, like he'd been keeping vigil and finally surrendered to exhaustion. She flexed her fingers. Pain shot up her arm, sharp enough to make her gasp. His eyes snapped open, instantly alert, no grogginess, just immediate focus on her face. "Don't move." He leaned forward, checking her bandaged arm with careful fingers. Dr. Russo had to put in 18 stitches. You lost enough blood to make him nervous. How long was I out? 6 hours. It's almost dawn. He stood, moved to a side table, poured water from a crystal pitcher, brought it to her lips. "Drink." Slowly, she drank. The water was cool, perfect. When she finished, he set the glass aside and sat on the edge of the bed, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his bare skin. "You scared me, Bambina." His voice was quiet, raw. "When I saw the blood, I thought, I'm fine. You're not fine. You were cut because I brought you to that gala. Because I used you as bait." His jaw tightened. "That won't happen again. You couldn't have known they'd move that fast." "I should have." He touched her hand, the one not connected to the injured arm. His fingers traced her knuckles. "This is what my world does. It takes innocent things and destroys them. I'm not destroyed. She turned her hand, caught his fingers. I'm stitched up and awake and still here. That counts for something. He looked at their joined hands like he was trying to memorize the sight. You should hate me. Probably. She squeezed his fingers. But I'm too tired to hate anyone right now. And you did save me. Again. After putting you in danger. Again. Abel. She waited until he met her eyes. Stop. Please. I can't deal with your guilt and my pain at the same time. Something almost like a smile touched his mouth. Bossy. Learning from the best. He stood, retrieved a shirt from somewhere, pulled it on. The domesticity of the gesture felt strange, intimate, like there was something other than captor and captive. Rest. Magdalena will bring breakfast later. Wait. Ophelia pushed herself up, ignoring the protest from her arm. The Morettis. They tried to take me. That means they're desperate, right? Making mistakes. Possibly. He buttoned the shirt, watching her. Why? Because desperate people leave trails. Make errors. Get sloppy. Her mind was waking up, the academic part of her brain engaging despite the pain medication. You said there's a mole. Someone feeding them information about your movements. Your routes. Yes. So they have inside access to your schedules, your security details, probably your shipping manifest too, if they knew when it hit your people. She swung her legs over the side of the bed, testing her balance. I can find them. Abel crossed his arms, leaning against the dresser. You're injured. I'm stitched. There's a difference. She stood, steadied herself. My entire graduate program is about finding patterns in economic data. Trade routes, shipping manifests, financial discrepancies. That's what I do. I find what doesn't belong. This isn't Byzantine economics. No, but the principle is the same. Someone's stealing information. Information leaves fingerprints, digital or otherwise. She took a step toward him. Let me help. Let me do something other than be the girl who needs saving. He studied her, and she could see him calculating. Risk versus reward. Pride versus pragmatism. You should be resting. I'll rest after. Right now, I need to feel useful. She held his gaze. Please, you gave my mother her scarf. Let me give you something in return. The mention of the scarf did it. She saw his expression shift, soften just slightly. 2 hours. Then you rest whether you found anything or not. Deal. 30 minutes later, she was sitting at the desk in Abel's office, his laptop open in front of her, 3 years of shipping manifests displayed across multiple windows. Abel stood behind her, one hand braced on the desk, watching the screen over her shoulder. These are the legitimate routes, he explained. Wine imports, olive oil, restaurant supplies. Everything documented, everything legal. Except they're not entirely legal, are they? She scrolled through the data, or the Morettis wouldn't care about them. The routes are legal. What occasionally travels on them is less so. His hand moved to her shoulder, careful of her injury. But only I and 3 others know which shipments carry what. 4 people. She opened a spreadsheet, started cross-referencing dates. How many attacks have there been in the last 6 months? 12. All on routes carrying high-value cargo. So 12 times, someone knew which truck to hit. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, pulling data, comparing timestamps. Show me your security team's shift schedules for those dates. He leaned over, logged into another system, pulled up schedules. She could smell his cologne, feel the warmth of him close behind her. Now show me access logs for this shipping database. Who views what and when? More files. She arranged them side by side, scanning for patterns. Her arm throbbed, but she ignored it, lost in the data, in the hunt. There. She pointed. Look at the access times. Someone views the shipping manifest roughly 12 to 18 hours before each hit, always from an internal IP address. Abel leaned closer. That could be anyone on the security team doing their job. Except, she highlighted another column. They're not just viewing their assigned routes. They're accessing all manifests, including ones they have no reason to see. And look at this. She opened another window, cross-referencing with your security schedules. The same person is off duty or on light assignment during every single attack. Because they're feeding information to the Moretus instead of being here. His voice had gone cold. Lethal. Who? She pulled up the user logs. Traced the IP addresses. Found the name attached to the account. Marco Benedetti, head of your night security detail. Silence. Heavy and dangerous. Marco. Abel said the name like it tasted poisonous. He's been with my family since I was 16. Since my father died. I'm sorry. She turned in the chair, looked up at him. But the data doesn't lie. He had access, opportunity, and he's been systematically viewing shipments he shouldn't care about right before they're hit. Abel's hand curled into a fist. The knuckles went white. She saw the moment control slipped, saw raw fury cross his face before he locked it down. He ate at my mother's table. His voice was quiet. Too quiet. He carried her casket at her funeral. Abel. He swore an oath. To my father. To me. He pushed away from the desk, paced to the window. Snow was falling again, blurring the grounds into abstract shapes. And he's been betraying us for what? Money? Fear. Ophelia stood, moved to him carefully. Her arm screamed in protest, but she ignored it. Touched his shoulder. You couldn't have known. Loyalty like that, it's supposed to be absolute. When someone breaks it, that's on them, not you. He turned, and his eyes were empty. The same emptiness she'd seen in the car that first night. In my world, betrayal has only one punishment. I know. She did. Had known from a moment she agreed to help that finding the traitor meant sentencing them to death. But that's your choice to make, not mine. I just found a pattern. You did more than that. He touched her face, thumb brushing her cheek. You gave me something I couldn't find myself. Even with all my resources, all my people, I couldn't see it. Because you were too close. Sometimes you need an outsider's eyes. An outsider. He said it like he was testing the word. Is that what you are? I don't know what I am anymore. The truth felt dangerous but necessary. I'm not your captive. Not really. Not after tonight. No. He pulled her closer, careful of her injury. You're not my captive. You're something far more dangerous. What? My partner. He said it simply, like it was fact, like it had been decided without her input. You think like I do, see patterns I miss, and you're brave enough to tell me things I don't want to hear. That's not partnership. That's just honesty. In my world, Bambina, they're the same thing. He pressed his forehead to hers. Rest now. Tomorrow, we deal with Marco. Together. She wanted to argue. Wanted to say she wasn't ready for whatever dealing with Marco meant. But exhaustion was pulling at her, the adrenaline fading, leaving only pain and the strange comfort of being held by a man who'd just lost someone he trusted. Together, she whispered, and meant it. Ophelia woke to gunfire and church bells. For one disoriented moment, she thought she was dreaming, that she was back in her apartment, that the past week had been some fever nightmare brought on by bad takeout and too much research. Then Abel burst through her bedroom door, already dressed, gun in hand, and reality crashed back with brutal clarity. Up. Now. He crossed to her in 3 strides, pulled her from the bed with his free hand. The Moretus are hitting us. Full assault. 20 men, maybe more. Christmas morning. She could see weak dawn light through the window. Snow falling soft and peaceful while bullets shattered that peace below. Marco, she managed, stumbling as he pulled her toward the door. Dealt with. His voice was flat. Final. She didn't ask for details. He told them everything before he died, including the panic room location. We can't use it. Then where? More gunfire, closer now. Shouting in Italian. The sharp crack of something exploding. Abel changed direction, pulling her down the hallway toward his office. There's a secondary room. Older. My father built it during the wars in the 80s. Marco didn't know about it. They reached the office. He moved to a bookshelf, pressed something hidden. The entire section swung inward, revealing a steel door behind it. Inside, he punched a code into the keypad. The door opened with a pneumatic hiss. Lock it behind me. Don't open it for anyone but me. You're leaving? Panic clawed at her throat. Abel, there are 20 of them. And 15 of my men still standing. We've held worse odds. He cupped her face, thumb brushing her cheek. The gesture was tender despite the violence exploding around them. But I can't think clearly if I'm worried about you. So you hide. You stay safe. You let me handle this. She grabbed his shirt. There has to be another way. Some strategy, some... The office window exploded inward. Glass everywhere. A man in black tactical gear climbing through, rifle raised. Abel moved, pushed her behind him, fired twice. The man dropped. Inside. Now. He shoved her through the doorway. Lock it, Ophelia. Don't make me waste time worrying about you. The steel door slammed shut. She heard the locks engage automatically, heard his footsteps running back toward the fight, heard more gunshots that made her stomach turn. The panic room was small, maybe 10 by 10 feet. Concrete walls, a single chair, a table with bottled water and protein bars, and covering one entire wall, security monitors, dozens of them, showing every angle of the estate. She could see everything. The front entrance, where 3 of Abel's men were pinned down behind overturned furniture. The kitchen, where Magdalena was being evacuated by 2 guards through a service exit. The grand foyer, where bodies already lay in spreading pools of blood. And Abel, moving through the halls like death incarnate. Firing, reloading, moving. Always moving. Never staying still long enough to be an easy target. She sank into the chair, transfixed by the screens. Counting attackers, tracking their positions, watching Abel's men fall one by one as the Morettis pushed deeper into the house. They were losing, not quickly, but inevitably. The Morettis had numbers, coordination, the advantage of surprise on Christmas morning when half the security team was supposed to be off duty. Abel was outnumbered and didn't know it. She could see what he couldn't. 6 Morettis moving through the east wing, flanking toward the office. 3 more circling to cut off his retreat. 2 setting up in the second-floor gallery with sniper rifles. He was walking into a trap, her hands curled into fists. She promised to hide, to stay safe, to let him handle it. But she hadn't promised to be useless. The security console had a radio system. She'd seen Abel use it during the investigation, talking to his men through encrypted channels. The headset hung on a hook beside the monitors. She grabbed it, flipped through channels until she found one crackling with Italian and gunfire. Abel. She kept her voice steady. Can you hear me? Silence. Then, Ophelia? Where are you? The panic room door is still locked. How are you? The secondary room. I'm looking at the security feeds. She scanned the monitors. East wing. 6 men. They're flanking you. 30 seconds from your position. A pause. She heard him breathing hard, heard bullets pinging off marble. You should be hiding, not. I am hiding. I'm also watching 27 cameras that you can't see. She tracked his position on screen, watched him duck into a doorway. Second floor gallery. 2 snipers setting up. Northwest corner. They have line of sight on the main staircase. Dio. Another burst of gunfire. Marco, the scarred one, leading the east wing group. He knows the house layout. Not all of it. Abel's voice went cold. Calculating. Can you guide me through the service corridors? Yes. Her finger traced routes on the screen. But you'll need to go through the wine cellar. Down the main stairs. Left at the portrait of your grandfather, 3rd door on the right. The stairs are exposed. Not if you go now. The snipers are still setting up. You have maybe 20 seconds before they're ready. She watched him appear on camera. Saw him sprint across the foyer, bullets tracking him, but missing. He disappeared down the stairs. I'm in. Where now? Straight ahead. 50 feet. There's a door marked storage. Go through it. She guided him through the maze of service corridors, watching the Morettis search the main floors, calling out positions, timing, threats. Her voice stayed steady even as her hand shook, even as she watched men die on the screens in front of her. Kitchen corridor. She watched 3 Morettis moving toward his position. 3 men, coming from the north. They'll reach your exit in 10 seconds. I see them. His voice was calm, lethal. Hold your ears, Bambina. On screen, she watched him step out, fire 3 times, drop all 3 men before they could react. Fast, precise, terrifying, clear. He was moving again. The snipers? Still in position. But your men just took the east wing. The flanking group is down. She checked other cameras. Abel, they're pulling back. Regrouping at the front entrance. How many left? She counted. Recounted. 11. Maybe 12. Against 9 of mine. A pause. Can you see their leader? Vittorio. She scanned the feeds. Found him on the front steps, barking orders into a phone. Even on the grainy camera, his expression was furious. Front entrance. He's calling someone. Maybe for reinforcements. No reinforcements are coming. Abel's voice was certain. The police are 10 minutes out. He knows it. He's calling a retreat. On screen, she watched it happen. The Morettas falling back, covering each other, dragging their wounded. Vittorio was the last to leave, staring at the mansion like he was memorizing it for future violence. Then they were gone, vehicles peeling away into the snowy dawn. The house went quiet, too quiet, just the distant sound of sirens and the drip of something she tried not to think about. Ophelia. Abel's voice through the headset. I'm coming to get you. The police will arrive to find a home invasion in progress. Wealthy businessman defending his property. All very legal and unfortunate. Footsteps on the stairs. Stay on the line. I need to hear your voice. I'm here. She watched him on camera, moving through the destroyed house. Blood on his shirt. Exhaustion in every line of his body. But alive. I'm not going anywhere. 5 minutes later, the steel door opened. Abel stood in the opening, and he looked like he'd fought a war. Blood streaked his face. His shirt was torn, but his eyes, when they found hers, were fierce and alive. You. He stepped inside, pulled her against him. You brilliant, impossible woman. You guided me through my own house like you'd lived here for years. I was just reading cameras. But she held on tight, breathing in gunpowder and cologne and the overwhelming relief that he was standing. You did all the hard parts. The hard parts. He laughed, sharp and broken. Bambina, you're my eyes. My strategy. You saw what I couldn't and kept me 3 steps ahead. You pulled back, looked at her. You saved my life. Multiple times. You saved mine first. Then we're even. His thumb brushed her cheek, and his expression softened. Merry Christmas, Ophelia Picho. Outside, sirens wailed. Inside, the house was destroyed. But standing in the hidden room with Abel's arms around her and dawn breaking through the smoke, Ophelia felt something unexpected. Not fear, not anymore. Something almost like belonging. Merry Christmas, Abel Costa. She touched the cross pendant at her throat, the one she'd worn since childhood. Still there, still intact despite everything. We survived. We did. He pressed his forehead to hers. Together, the word felt like a promise, like a future neither of them had expected to have. The police left after 3 hours of questions, photographs, and barely concealed skepticism. Abel played the part perfectly. Concerned citizen, victim of home invasion, grateful to be alive. His lawyers were better. By noon, the house was cleared and the bodies were gone, leaving only bloodstains and bullet holes to mark what had happened. Ophelia watched from the second-floor window as the last squad car pulled away. Her arm ached where the stitches pulled. Her hands still shook from the adrenaline crash. But she was alive, and so was Abel, and somehow that felt like winning. They'll be back. Abel's voice came from behind her. She hadn't heard him approach. With more questions. Better questions. They know what I am, even if they can't prove it. She turned. He'd showered, changed into clean clothes. Black pants, black sweater. The tattoos on his neck were stark against the fabric. He looked exhausted and dangerous, and somehow more real than he had in the tuxedo. Will they find anything? Nothing that will stick. He moved to stand beside her, looking out at the snow-covered grounds. My lawyers are very good at their jobs, and the Morettas left enough evidence of breaking and entering to make my story believable. Is it over? She needed to hear him say it. With Vittorio? With them? No. His jaw tightened. He lost today. Lost men, lost face, lost the element of surprise. But men like Vittorio don't surrender. They regroup. They plan. They wait. He looked at her, which is why we need to talk. Something in his tone made her stomach drop. About what? About you leaving. The words hit like a physical blow. She stepped back, wrapped her arms around herself. You're sending me away. I'm giving you a choice. He turned to face her fully. The Morettas know your face, know your name. But if you leave now, with a new identity and enough money to start over anywhere in the world, they'll eventually lose interest. You'll become a ghost. Invisible again. Invisible. She tasted the word, bitter and familiar. Like I was before. Safe. His voice was careful. Too careful. You'll be safe, Ophelia. That's what matters. To who? Anger sparked through the exhaustion. To you? Because you feel guilty? Because keeping me here complicates your war? Because you deserve a life that isn't built on violence and looking over your shoulder. He moved closer, but didn't touch her. You have your research, your mother, a future that doesn't involve gunfights and blood on marble floors. I had that life. She met his eyes, and I was lonely, invisible, just another face people looked through on their way to somewhere more important. Her voice cracked. Do you know what it's like to work yourself into exhaustion and still feel like you don't matter? To have everything you've achieved mean nothing because no one actually sees you. Ophelia, but here. She gestured at the destroyed house around them. In this nightmare, with you, I mattered. My brain mattered. My voice mattered. When I guided you through those corridors this morning, you trusted me completely. No questions. No doubt. Just trust. Because you earned it. Exactly. She stepped closer. I earned it. Not because of my degree or my publications or how many hours I worked, but because I saw what needed to be done and I did it. And you saw me doing it. He touched her face, thumb brushing her cheek. The gesture was becoming familiar, essential. I see you, Bambina. I've seen you from the moment you got in my car and started giving directions like you own the world. Then why are you trying to send me away? Because this morning I watched you hide in a panic room while men try to kill me. His voice went rough. Because yesterday you bled in my arms. Because keeping you here means you'll always be a target, and I don't know if I can survive watching you hurt again. That's not your choice to make. She caught his wrist, held his hand against her face. That's mine, and I'm choosing to stay. You don't understand what you're choosing. I understand perfectly. She pulled his hand down, held it between both of hers. I'm choosing danger over safety, visibility over invisibility, a life where I matter over a life where I'm comfortable but forgotten. You'll never have a normal life. I don't want normal. Normal was killing me slowly. She squeezed his hands. Abel, my entire existence has been about being small enough, quiet enough, unthreatening enough to be allowed in rooms where I didn't belong. And I was so good at it that I disappeared, even to myself. He was quiet, watching her with those black, unreadable eyes. But with you, she continued, I can't disappear. You won't let me. You see my mind, my strength, my worth. And yes, it's terrifying. Yes, I might die, but at least I'll die as someone who mattered, someone who was seen. Ophelia. Her name was a prayer and a curse. I'm giving you an out, a clean escape. Money, identity, freedom. Everything. Everything except you. She said it simply, truthfully. Everything except this feeling of being necessary, of being chosen, of belonging somewhere. His hands tightened on hers. You barely know me. I know enough. I know you remember your mother's cashmere scarves. I know you keep the dates of people you've lost written on your skin. I know you went feral when you thought I was hurt. She touched the tattoos on his neck. I know you're dangerous and damaged and absolutely certain you don't deserve anything good. And I'm choosing you anyway. Why? The word was barely a whisper. Vulnerable in a way she'd never heard from him. Because you chose me first. She traced the geometric patterns on his throat. When you locked those car doors. When you kept me alive. When you trusted me to guide you through a battlefield. You chose me over and over. Even when it would have been easier to let me go. That's not. Yes, it is. She looked up at him. So now I'm choosing you back. I'm choosing this complicated, dangerous, impossible thing between us. I'm choosing to be visible, even if it means being vulnerable. He stared at her like she was something precious and terrifying. You're sure? I'm terrified. She smiled, shaky but real. But I'm sure. He pulled her close, careful of her injury, and buried his face in her hair. She felt him shake. Not crime, but something close. Relief, maybe. Or fear. Or the overwhelming weight of being chosen by someone who understood exactly what they were choosing. There's no going back from this, he murmured against her temple. Once you're mine, once the world knows you've chosen my side, you can't become invisible again. Good. She wrapped her arms around him. I'm done being invisible. The Morettas will come for us both. I know. She pulled back, looked at him. But we'll handle it. Together. Like we handled today. He touched her face again, both hands now, framing her like she was something holy. You're insane. Probably. She turned her head, kissed his palm. But I'm your insane. If you'll have me. If I'll have you. He laughed, broken and real. Bambina, I've been yours since you broke that necklace and left me a trail of diamonds. I just didn't want to admit it. Then admit it now. He kissed her. Finally. Properly. Not the brush of lips, but a claiming, a promise, a future written in the way his mouth moved against hers. She kissed him back, tasting coffee and desperation and something that felt dangerously close to love. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, he pressed his forehead to hers. You're mine, he said. Not a question. A fact. I'm yours, she agreed. And you're mine. Yes. So what now? He smiled, and it was real, reaching his eyes for the first time since she'd met him. Now, we celebrate Christmas. Late, and in a house full of bullet holes. But together. Together. She touched the cross at her throat, then his tattooed hands. I think that's the best Christmas present I've ever received. Better than cashmere scarves? Better than invisibility. She kissed him again, softer this time. Much, much better than being forgotten. Outside, snow continued to fall on the bloodstained grounds. Inside, two people who'd found each other in violence and chaos held on tight, choosing connection over safety, visibility over comfort, and each other over everything else. The price of loyalty was high, but for the first time in her life, Ophelia Picho felt like she was worth paying it. Magdalena returned at sunset with groceries, fresh flowers, and a determination to salvage Christmas despite the bullet holes and bloodstains. In Natale, she declared, shooing Abel's men out of the kitchen. Even criminals deserve Christmas dinner. Out. Let me work. Ophelia sat at the kitchen island, watching the old woman move with practiced efficiency. Her arm still ached, wrapped in fresh bandages Dr. Russo had applied that afternoon. But the pain felt distant, manageable. Everything felt different now that she'd chosen to stay. You look happy, Cara. Magdalena paused in chopping vegetables, studying her. Finally, like you belong here. I think I do. The words felt strange, true. Belong here, I mean. Good. Magdalena smiled, that knowing grandmother smile. Abel needs someone who sees him. Really sees him. Not the boss. Not the heir. Just the boy who still misses his mama. You knew his mother? Since she was a bride. Magdalena's hands moved automatically, muscle memory guiding the knife. Beautiful woman. Kind heart. Too kind for this life, some said. But she loved Abel's father with everything she had. And she loved that boy more than breath. She pointed the knife at Ophelia. You remind me of her. Strong spine hidden under soft heart. I'm not sure about the soft heart part. You stayed. Magdalena returned to chopping. After everything. That's soft heart. Smart head, yes. But soft heart too. You'll need both being with him. Being with him. The phrase settled into her chest like warmth. Abel appeared in the doorway an hour later, showered again, wearing black jeans and a simple black sweater that somehow made him look younger. Less Mafia Don, more just a man exhausted by violence and ready for peace. Come with me. He offered his hand. Before Magdalena conscripts us into cooking duty. She took it. Let him lead her through the destroyed house to the library. Someone had cleaned up the worst of the damage here. The books were intact, the leather chairs only slightly blood-splattered. A fire crackled in a marble fireplace, and on the table in front of it sat a single wrapped box. I had this prepared before. He gestured to the box. Before the attack, before you chose to stay. But it feels more right now. Abel, you don't need to give me anything. Open it. His voice was quiet. Please. She sat, pulled the box toward her. The wrapping was simple, elegant. Burgundy paper with gold ribbon. Inside, a leather portfolio. She opened it carefully. Documents. Legal papers. Her name at the top of each one. What is this? Your future. He sat beside her, close enough that their knees touched. If you're staying, you're not staying as my captive or my accessory. You're staying as my partner. He pointed to the first document. That's ownership papers for a building in the financial district. 3 floors. Office space. For whatever you want. A consulting firm. A research institute. Your own empire. She stared at the papers, unable to process. I can't accept. You can. You will. He turned to the next page. Bank accounts. In your name only. Enough to fund whatever venture you choose. Enough that you never depend on me for money. Another page. Legal credentials. Graduate degree verification. References from professors I've never met, but who will vouch for your brilliance because I've made it worth their while. You're buying me a life. I'm giving you the tools to build your own. He touched her hand. Everything I have, you have access to, but this is yours. Not mine. Not ours. Yours. So if you ever want to leave, you can. With resources. With power. With choices. Her throat closed. She couldn't speak. The rest of the documents are different. He flipped to the back of the portfolio. Property deeds. Businesses. Legitimate ones. Half of everything I own that isn't blood-soaked. His hand covered hers completely. In my world, when a man chooses a queen, he doesn't just give her a ring. He gives her a kingdom to rule. A queen. She managed to say it. Barely. My queen. He turned her face toward him. But also your own. You want to be seen. To matter. To have your intelligence valued. So I'm giving you an empire to run. My legitimate businesses need someone with your mind. Someone who can analyze, strategize, grow them into something even my enemies can't touch. Why? She searched his eyes. Why give me so much power? Because you've already proven you won't abuse it. Because you chose me when you could have chosen safety. Because, he touched her cheek. Because I trust you with everything I am. And in my world, trust is rarer than love. And love. Her voice was barely a whisper. What about that? Bambina. He smiled, and it transformed his face. I've loved you since you dropped those diamonds and left me a trail. I just didn't have a word for it until now. She kissed him. Let the portfolio fall to the floor. Let the documents scatter. Let everything else fade except the feeling of his mouth on hers and his hands pulling her close. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, she pressed her forehead to his. I love you too. The words felt like freedom. Like choosing to be seen and choosing to see him back. You terrifying, tattooed criminal. I love you. Good. He kissed her again, softer. Because you're stuck with me now. No new identity. No escape. Just this. Just this. She traced the tattoos on his neck. Just us. Forever. A knock at the door. Magdalena's voice calling that dinner was ready. They stood, Ophelia gathering the scattered documents, Abel watching her with something like reverence. At the doorway, he stopped her. One more thing. He pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. Not the diamond necklace box. Something smaller. Inside a ring. Simple platinum band with a single stone. Not a diamond. Something darker. Burgundy and deep. Garnet, he explained. My mother's birthstone. And the color of the scarf you bought for yours. He took her left hand. This isn't a proposal. Not yet. You've had enough choices forced on you. But it's a promise. That when I do ask, it will be because you're ready. Not because you're trapped. He slipped it on her right hand instead of her left. The stone caught firelight glowing like wine. A promise ring. She smiled through tears she didn't try to hide. How very teenage of you. I never got to be a teenager. My father died, and I became this. He touched the ring on her finger. Let me have this one normal thing. One uncomplicated gesture that says I want a future with you. It's not uncomplicated. No. He pulled her close. But it's ours. They walked to the kitchen together, where Magdalena had transformed disaster into celebration. Candles on the table. Fresh bread. Wine. A feast made from love and determination. Abel's remaining men joined them. These dangerous criminals turning soft around Magdalena's cooking and Christmas spirit. They toasted to survival, to loyalty, to the boss and his chosen queen. Ophelia sat at Abel's right hand, garnet ring glowing on her finger, legal documents promising a future she'd never imagined, surrounded by people who'd become something like family. Her mother had called earlier, relieved to hear her voice. The new scarf had arrived, perfect and burgundy, and accompanied by a card that said exactly what Ophelia would have written. Abel had kept that promise too. "What are you thinking?" Abel murmured against her ear. "That a week ago I got in the wrong car. And now." She looked at him, at the tattoos that mapped his grief, at the hands that had killed to protect her, at the eyes that saw her completely. "Now I think it was exactly the right car." She kissed his cheek. "I just didn't know it yet. Merry Christmas, Bambina. Merry Christmas, Abel." She touched the ring, the promise, the future. "Thank you for locking the doors." He laughed, real and warm. "Thank you for breaking the necklace. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for staying." Outside, Chicago glittered with Christmas lights and fresh snow. Inside, two people who'd found each other in chaos held hands across a table and celebrated a holiday that had brought them everything they didn't know they needed. A queen and her king. A criminal and his conscience. A man who'd learned to love and a woman who'd learned she was worth loving. Together. Finally. Home.
Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.